a little bit of overloading constructors. So I will continue from the other code just not to confuse you. But the purpose of constructors is initialization. I don't know if it is what we have even done in the first session because I may get confused of what we have already did. So the purpose of a constructor is to initialize. So in this superclass students, I have variables that we declared in the first session, these variables here. And I want to use a constructor to initialize these variables, but I want to try and see, is it possible to overload a constructor? Overloading a constructor, meaning, is it possible for that constructor to have a longer list of parameters passed to it? So that's it. Putting in mind that a constructor takes the same name as the class in which it's actually declared. And what makes it special still is that that constructor has no return type. So that's the constructor. It's called student. So inside this parenthesis is where I'm actually supposed to do what? It's where I am supposed to pass parameters. So in most cases, you'll be asked to use the this keyword. For me, where I use the this keyword is when I have the same parameter names as the names I have for the variables. Let me do it for you here. See, so we can have something of the sort. That's the first variable. You have another one. That's another one. Then you have another one of age. You have another one of what is. So that's the construct I have. I don't know. Yeah. Oops. So yeah. So that's the construct I have. I don't know if you guys can see this. So this is the constructor. So for this case, we have the same variable names as the variables which I have up here that I have declared in my class. And I want to use a constructor this to initialize these variables. Because most times you'll find yourself that you're repeating initialization down here. You're repeating initialization multiple times. So the reason as to why you use that constructor is to initialize once. And if you have more than one object, you can simply use an array of objects with constructors to initialize those variables. I don't know if you guys are okay with objects, array of objects. Okay. So we can go on. So I have my constructor that, and it is having the same what, the same variable names as these variables that we declared here. So where I use this keyword is to differentiate or actually to say that this this variable that I have here, to it I'm assigning this variable in my what? In my constructor. So it is used to execute currently, it is used to handle correctly executing what? Statement. So you can have this, okay? You can have something like this. And to it, you assign a new variable that you have declared in your constructor. That's okay. You can do that for all of them. But I use that for my case. I use that where I have the same what? The same variable names. Anyone is having a question there? I hope you guys are seeing what I'm doing. So this is the constructor right here. Yeah. I'm going to explain for you this and what it means. You can mute yourself if you don't want to talk because you're killing people's ears. So this is it. We have our constructor. Actually, we have variables. I don't know who that is. So I think we can continue, but whoever is you can mute yourself. So we can continue. So we have variables here. We have these variables, and I want to use my constructor to initialize those variables. So this is it. In a constructor, you have parameters in this parenthesis. So you will simply assign those new parameters in the constructor to the former declared variables in your class. So these are the parameters. This is a parameter, this is a parameter, this is a parameter, and they have data types attached to them. Someone can ask, why don't we have a return type for constructor and we have a return type for what? For a variable inside the parameter. It's just that you cannot have you cannot have variables inside the constructor and those variables have no return types. So they should be attached to what? To a type. So you have this name here. Sorry. So you have this name, which is this one in a declaration. To it, you're assigning a new variable name in the constructor. So the same happens throughout. But if we had different variable names in the constructor, assuming we simply had this, instead of having things that are complex. You can use this keyword, no problem. So if that's what we had, then I don't need to have this keyword anywhere. I don't need to have this keyword. I will simply have my variables at the top level of declaration, and to them I do what? I assign my new variables. I assign my new variables from the constructor. I hope you guys are seeing this. So that's it. Any question about this? Any question on this? Yeah, so that's it. You have a constructor and you want to use that constructor to initialize. So the other thing was, is it possible to overload? To overload, yeah. Someone asked, is it possible to overload the constructor? Let's try it here. Is it possible to have the same constructor students and we try to overload it? Yeah, we can try. So it is possible to have the same constructor in the same class. But is it possible to overload? Because with overloading, it means you're going to have more values or more variables or more parameters that are passed to that constructor. So let's try and see. Let's try and see. Is it possible to, is it possible to do that? So we can have string n string would be for location maybe. Maybe int 8 int hold on, I get this call. Yeah, so I was telling you that we are trying to overload the constructor. We are trying to see, is it possible for the same constructor in the same class to have more number of parameters more than the first constructor? And also the other thing is the constructor cannot be overridden. You cannot have this class here extending the constructor of this superclass. You cannot have this class O level inheriting the constructor of the superclass what? Of the superclass students. So let me complete this overload for us. Can have for wait, I don't know if that's the spelling. So at first we had 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. We can have another one, maybe int. Int what? Okay. You can have string. But I didn't declare those variables anywhere. So I actually have to declare them somewhere. Oh, we have issues. Okay. Yeah, so that's it. That's it. That's it. So what you can do here, you can simply declare new variables that should actually cater for the new things you have declared in your constructor. So you can have a string for location. So it doesn't matter whether the parameters are different or they are the same. What matters is, have you overloaded something? Because that's what we want to check for at the moment. You have 8. Wait. What was there? What was there? What they should have been 5. 1, 2, 4. No. You should have around 5 so that you bring out the thing of overload. So another one can be what? Yeah, it can be of birth, I guess that can work. So yeah, here you can come and have your y of birth. So that I have done is I'm trying to overload the constructor. I'm trying to see, is it possible to overload? But it is not possible to override a constructor. You see, there is an error here. I want you to see. Add constructor or level, blah, blah, blah. So you can see if you have a constructor in the superclass, that having that superclass's name, if you're trying to override that constructor, it will never have the same name. It will simply have the name of the subclass that is extending or that is inheriting from the what? From the superclass. But you cannot have a constructor students in a subclass or level. That's not possible. If you're trying to do that, then it should be a different what? It should be a different constructor name. So it doesn't matter whether you have the same variable names. That doesn't matter really. So we can take away this. Take away this. So let's try to use our constructor to initialize. So yeah, our class is called students. Use that students object to create an object for that class. Students. Yeah. So what happens here is that so this is it. So we should actually, it will still show you an error, not until you have initialized that constructor. So on this side, we have created an object of type students from the class students. So that's on the left. Then on the right, we are going to be doing what? Initializing new values to the what? New values to the arguments inside our constructors. I don't know if we can get that, but that's it. That's it. So I have showed you constructor overload. Whoever was asking it, now I know you're quite sure of it. So here, what we want to do is to initialize our variables. The first we have is NF for name. I don't know. And have that. Then the next one we have is also a string, so it can be a class, maybe that. The next you have is an integer. So integers are not put in string quotes. Sorry, integers are not put in string quotes. They are simply put in. You just declare them by it. So this can be maybe something of the sort. After that, you do that. So that's it. You have initialized the variables you declared up here using a constructor. So instead of you coming here and you say object dot this, the variable is equal to this value object. No, you simply do that in a constructor. So when you're outputting, I don't know, are there any questions so far from where we are? I don't want to rush. Don't want to rush. Someone asked the purpose of a constructor. From the start, I said a constructor's purpose is initialization. Yeah, constructor's purpose is initialization. That's all that the constructor is made for. So I think we can continue if there are any questions. So I can try to output my values that I've assigned to the variables using the constructor, again using the object that I have created. So in this case, the object that I've created is obj. So I'll simply have an output statement. Yeah, have to go back. Okay. System.out.print line. So in there, you can then have something of the sort. Obj dot the name. That's okay. You concatenate. You guys know what concatenation is already. You have another one was what? Another one was class. Another one was class. Yeah. So you concatenate obj dot class. Another one was edge. So you concatenate obj dot what edge. Another one is fizz. Concatenate is obj is. That's the code. That's the code. So we have our constructor here. Don't know if you, because I want you to see. So this is the constructor. This is the constructor. This can go. This is the constructor, and yeah. So initialization takes place here at object creation. Then you can simply output what you have initialized. What will be the output if we try to output this? It is going to be on a straight line because I forgot to put the /n. I forgot to put the /n's. So that will be the output for you. I forgot to put the /n's. this will be the kind of output from this kind of constructor for you. Yes, that will be the output. Any question on these constructors? If all attributes are private, you will still output them the same way as you outputting the other. So let's try this and see. Let's try this and you see. Is it possible to do that? That's what, yeah, it is. It has no problem at all. They are still output, but I think we shall have an error somewhere. Shall have an error somewhere. So I will show you that. I'll show you that, but it should actually output. It should be outputting for you. Should be outputting for you. Something is wrong here. I'll figure it out and tell you what it was. Any other question? Any other question? And this so far, if you have a question, you can go through it. Default constructor exists by default. So even if you don't declare any constructor, that default constructor is always there. Yeah, it's always there. The other one that I wanted to go through was I don't know, but I've showed you overload, override, showed you inheritance, abstraction, interfaces. So I think it's fair enough. If we get time tomorrow, then we'll go through stuff of abstract. Exceptional handling. Tomorrow we get the time. We'll go through exceptional handling. So, is there any person with a question that you can? Or if is there someone that wants to share something, unmute. You can unmute yourself and share. Okay, so that was it. That was it that I had for you. I told you you cannot override constructors. Yeah, that's it. That was it. You can overload the constructor, but you can't override the constructor. Yeah, that has never happened in Java. So that was it. I don't know any more question. Any more question that you guys have? You can do it, and yeah. Any more? Okay, so I think we are good to go. If there's none, then I think we can. So I hope this was a bit useful because people wanted physical discussions, but they're actually almost next to impossible because almost all rooms are used up or they are fixed. So